project that I was involved in was a very big CD, DVD project that was released all over Asia, of course, on Europe. And I had to do it in English and Japanese. So you're going to get English-Japanese version. So here it goes. Ladies and gentlemen. Japanese thing because they're like, well, that doesn't make sense. Shouldn't you do like either English or just Japanese? But a lot of times what they do with this is kind of for like an educational curriculum thing, right? Where they wanted to have, starting from at a very little age, they wanted to have their children be used to hearing English and Japanese together. So that mix is really important. Even in radio, I was in radio for 20 years in Japan, almost. And in radio, we always did what I call champo, which is an English and Japanese mix, where we segue in and out. In fact, to this day, when I see some of my high school friends or people from Japan, I will immediately, sometimes without even knowing it, I will switch off into that champo mode, and it drives people crazy. If they can't understand, you know, because it's like, really, come on, make up your mind, you know, but and that would probably, I would still have to say that's probably my most comfortable way of understanding the language. Now, you guys talked about how you wanted to go to high school. You were thinking about, you know, doing some schooling in Japan. And one of the best ways, I think, is to go at a young age, of course. And the younger age that you go to Japan and kind of study there, you will probably develop that champo, because you'll want to mix English and Japanese. So yes, I highly recommend it. Now, another thing that came up in my autograph session was Crazy Taxi. Yes. So now I have two kind of small stories about that. So, and I was telling you earlier about the story where I found out I was going to be doing the Crazy Taxi one. I arrive at the studio, and the client says, "Oh, Lisle-san, you will be doing all female voices for Crazy Taxi." I'm like, what? I didn't get that memo, you know. So I think I probably did almost all the voices for Crazy Taxi. I think they might have brought in another female voice, but I did a lot of the work. Now, another story with Crazy Taxi. So, a lot of times as a voice actor, you do a job, and then you kind of forget about it in a way, because sometimes it'll come out like a year or 2 years later, especially back in the day. Now the turnover is much quicker, right, obviously. But back in the day, Crazy Taxi, I had done almost all the female voices. And then, fast forward to probably about a year later, I'm on my first date with this guy in Japan, and he was a big gamer. Right? So he wanted to go to, there's an area called Shibuya, which is like the fashion district, like young district in downtown Tokyo. And he loved going to this one arcade there, right? And he's like, yeah, there's this really cool new game that's out I really love, right? And so part of our first date, he wanted to, before we went out to eat, he wanted to go to the arcade. So I was like, okay, yeah, cool, no problem. So he's playing the game, and I'm sure you guys probably already know where I'm going with this, but he's playing the game, and I'm kind of watching him. Does that voice sound really familiar? Right? And then all of a sudden, and then I heard, I don't remember what it is, I think it was like a mannerism, or something I said, maybe it was a line that I said or something, as Gena. It was definitely Gena, the character Gena. And I heard it, and I was like, what? That's me! And I freaked out. This was the first time I ever heard my voice in a video game. I completely freaked out. I was like, oh, we have to go, come on, you know. And, yeah. So, for those of you who are thinking about being a voice actor, and you might say, like I know you want to be a voice actor, and there are a lot of people that say, well, I don't really like my voice that much, or you do, but you still kind of get freaked out by it sometimes when you hear it. Don't worry, we all have had that, we've all been there, done that, and I still, a lot lot of times I don't like hearing my own voice. But yeah, so that's my crazy taxi story. Now another story, yes, that I want to tell you guys about, and this will be another very fun Japanese story that I tell a lot of times in my Memoirs of the Six People in Geisha, is you saw my picture of boxing, okay? And I will show you. Okay, that is me, right?
Right.
In a boxing format. That was a real fight. Yes. Okay. So now here is. Yes, here's the crazy story. Now this would probably I would file this under never say never, and strange things will always happen when you live in Japan. I was in now, as you guys know, I was in Lost in Translation. The same agency that I did Lost in Translation for, they managed quite a few gaijin fighters, like pro fighters. At one point in time, probably about 10 years ago, I was boxing. I did a lot of boxing. Not in a rink, okay? I did it with a personal trainer, and it was pads. We were just doing combinations, and as I still love boxing. I think it's one of the best exercises. Yeah, I absolutely love it. Which is why I'm so proud to be the voice for a lot of fighting characters, because obviously it's kind of part of who I am. But so I had this, and 10 years ago I was doing this show called Lisle Wilkerson Show. It was my last big show that I did for radio in Japan before I moved out here. And I had this concept about female empowerment and, this whole thing about at any point in your life, as a woman, you can start over. You can press the restart button. It's all about the way you think. It's all about the way you frame your mind. You can, if you, say for instance, if you were a mother for many years, and then all of a sudden, you spent all your time with your kids, and all of a sudden you find out that you're in your workforce, or, stuff like that. And also keep in mind, at that time I was, I guess it wasn't 10 years, but it was probably about 8 years. I was about 30 years old. Okay, so don't do the math, don't figure out how old I am, but, and so it was going to be a really important show to me. I really wanted to have a message, to my female listeners that, be about not just empowerment, but of inspiring. And I wanted to kind of use myself as an example. And my harebrained idea was, because I loved boxing so much, I wanted to go through this whole process where I started training to be a fighter. So it was the journey of me where someone would actually document my, me as I'm fighting, the good and the bad, the good and the ugly, where, because of training, I might, who knows, I might be throwing up, or, I might hurt myself, whatever. It is what it is. It's part of the process. And so I just wanted to make it on the ring. I wanted to be in a fight where I would actually be fighting against an opponent. Okay, so I had this wonderful idea. I thought, I'm going to talk to the agency, IMO, the one that I worked with Lost in Translation. I had this, PowerPoint, I made the presentation, they're like, they sounded very interested. So I was like, okay, awesome, great meeting. And then I don't, hear from them for a few weeks. They call me, I think this was 2007, probably the second week of January. 2007. They call me and they say, talk a little bit different from your idea that you were talking about doing, this documentary. However, how would you like to be in a fight? And I'm like, what? No! Not only is it Choto a little bit different, this is very different. I'm like, what are you talking about? How would I like to be in a fight? I have never been a person, besides my brother and sister. I've never, once the shot wore off, I said, what do you mean? And they said, well, we have this fixed or rigged fight where one of our girls, who is a kickboxer, and she's actually a pro kickboxer, was going to be fighting this Japanese female kickboxer, and they were practicing, because obviously it's a rigged fight, and that's what they do, I guess. Yes, so she got injured very badly, the Gaijin one, and she was in the hospital, right? So they tell me all this, and they're like, so, would you like to do the fight for her? Right? Now, any normal person, I'm sure, would say, oh no, we're done. But this is where I always say you have to take risks, right? So I thought about it, and I said, you know what? Because I'm thinking to myself very quickly, obviously. I'm like, okay. And I told them, okay, give me a few days to think about this, and I will get back to you. So I'm, weighing the pros and the cons. Because first of all, I'm thinking, like, who would ever, where would you ever get this opportunity? Absolutely, there would, never be an opportunity like this. So after thinking about it, I called them up and I said, okay, here's the deal. I will say yes to the fight if you set me up with the fighter I'm fighting against and the manager. And if I get a good vibe, because I am very much of an intuition person. Like, if I feel that it's going to be okay, then I will go ahead and do it. And I will put everything I have into it. That's just how I'm built. So I said, yeah, I'll do that. And so they're like, okay. So, and then of course, all of a sudden, I have a fighting manager that I've been assigned. They're like, okay, so you're going to be going with your manager to this meeting. I'm like, well, the person I was fighting against was an actual fighter, and so we had to have a meeting in secret in a karaoke box in downtown Tokyo.
Oh, wow.
Like a small little karaoke box. I have no idea what I'm getting into at all. So I show up with my manager, and I immediately liked her. I thought she was great. She was a little rough around the edges, but hey, she's a fighter, man. She kicks people's butts for a living, so that's okay. But she was really, really genuine, and I really liked her a lot. And so she starts off, first of all, by moving all the chairs and everything, and I thought, oh boy, here we go. And she said, okay, now here's my first signature move that I do. It's the neck kick. I said, oh, no, we're not doing that one. Immediately. And she's like, okay, what about the knee kick? That's another one of my signatures. I said, no, we're not doing that one either, because I hurt my knee in volleyball many times. So I have a bad knee. My left knee is really bad from volleyball. So I said no. And she said, okay, well, the ankle kick? Sporadically, okay. Maybe like a few of them, yes. And we finally came to the conclusion that I could do mid-thigh, mid-calf, and waist. And then even like up here a little bit would be okay. Right, so this is an MMA fight, mixed martial arts. I know, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. And so I decided to do the fight. Then I go home and kind of freaked out, not really as freaked out as I should have been. The whole time I'm just thinking to myself, theme song, man. What am I going to do for a theme song when I come out? Obviously in denial, right? What I have just committed to, and not knowing that I could really get so badly hurt. But that's what I was thinking about for I only had 2 weeks to prepare.
Wow.
And it's probably a good thing, because if I had had a lot longer, I probably might have passed out the whole thing. But, so I was, so we had our first rehearsal, and I have never, and then the second rehearsal. After those 2 rehearsals, we only had 2 rehearsals to really come up with the choreography. It was a minute and 43 seconds long, which sounds kind of like a very short time, but it's not really when people are, when you have someone that's kicking your butt. Yeah, exactly. And she kept saying the whole time, she's like, Lisle, I just want to let you know that this is a rigged fight, but adrenaline is going to kick in, and so you will get hurt, all right? And I said, well, as long as I get bruised and everything, I'm fine. I've played sports my whole life. I understand that mentality. Oh, autograph? Okay. So, tell me. Yeah, are we okay for time? Okay, perfect. Yeah. So this will finish in about 5 minutes. So I knew that I knew that it was a big risk that I was taking, being a part of this fight. But I thought, especially coming from a media point of view, where it's all about having these incredible experiences, I thought this would be an experience. So, but I really liked my opponent. So I did feel comfortable. I mean, I had never been, and I probably never will be, as sore as those 2 weeks, because she just kicked, and then we would have to practice over and over again. And I would be like, I'd be wobbling home, and then the day before the fight comes, and they give me my mouth guard. And that's when it really sunk in. I was like, and of course, meanwhile, I called my parents a few days before, just because, right? And I told my mom and dad, you met, yeah. And I said, so Mom and Dad, I'm going to be in a fight. Why are you predicting that you're going to be in a fight? I mean, what, that doesn't make sense. I said, no, I'm going to be in a fixed fight. They're like, okay. I mean, what do you say to that, right? So I'm forming my mouth guard to my mouth, and that's when I really started freaking out. And I just thought, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm going to be doing this. This is crazy. Then, okay, game day comes. It was at a place called Shinjuku, which is a part of, it's kind of the business district of Japan, very close to Harajuku, to Shibuya, to that area, like a 10-minute cab ride. And I was supposed to meet my manager at a place called Studio Alta, which is a very famous Japanese young fashion store. So I met him in front of there. And this other girl that I used to sometimes do a lot of TV extra work with, like the one where I told you, the crap, she was always with me, in those various jobs. But so she showed up, and she was a singer. So, and she was like, oh, wow, okay, what are you doing here? You're here for this gig too, right? And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, I said, what are you doing here? She said, oh, I'm going to be singing the anthem, the national anthem. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Not even thinking that's for me, right? Still. So we get to the venue. It was a place called Shinjuku Liquor Room. I get there, and that's when I understood, how incredibly over my head I was, because I was told by my studio manager, whose name is Wayne, he said, Lisle, you have 5 minutes to go do some shadow boxing and kind of warm up in the ring, right? Did you want to go ahead and go? I'm like, no, I don't know what I'm doing, how am I going to practice? I mean, they'll know. I mean, this is my outfit that I was wearing shorts, I was wearing yoga wear, Lululemon? The yoga brand. That's what I was wearing for my boxing or whatever fighting match. So I'm looking at everyone, and they're kind of doing their thing, and sparring, shadow boxing, and everything. Meanwhile, I'm on the side, kind of stretching, and I'm trying not to look like I'm over my head with this whole thing. But so then he's like, okay, well then just go ahead and go to the medical room because you have to get a checkup, right, for a big game. And so I'm standing in line. There's a guy next to me who's speaking to another one, a fellow fighter, in Japanese. Now, keep in mind that no one knows that I speak Japanese in the venue, right? So all of a sudden, he turns to me in broken English. He said, oh, are you Miss Wilkerson? And I was like, yeah. How many fights do you do? Oh, this is my first fight. And then, and then he turned to his friend. He said, why is she lying like that? She's had at least 7 or 8 fights. I'm getting ready to do my medical checkup. I'm like, this is not what I want to be listening to. And he yeah, like, she's been boxing for a while, I don't know, and he's just, he's saying all this stuff. I'm listening to this going, what the heck is going on? What am I missing, right? So, so it's my turn, get the medical checkup. Believe it or not, my heart rate was, according to the doctor, he said, "Are you nervous about today's fight?" And I said, "Oh yeah." He said, "Really? Because your heart rate is, beating very normally." I said, "Yes, because I'm in shock by everything that's going on right now." And so I go to my dressing room, which I'm sharing with my opponent, who supposedly I've never met before, right? So when she addresses me, she says, "Lisle Wilkerson," because it's a very polite way of saying, so she's trying to show respect, kind of like show the distance between us, that we haven't really spent time together. And so I get to the room, and there is a booklet in the dressing room, like on my table. And I'm kind of leafing through the booklet, and then inside, because I was a last-minute opponent, obviously, that had joined this whole, so I was an insert, but it had my fighting career bio, exactly. And I'm looking at this, and I said, "Really, Ricky? Really?" I said, "She's an up-and-coming American boxer, 3 years of fighting, very powerful."
Propaganda to the match.
Yeah, I kid you not, I was like, oh my gosh, I kind of feel, I know it's not a Rocky scenario, but I was like, oh wow, what have I got myself into? And then I find out that I'm going to be fighting not just a match, but the championship match.
Are you
serious? And this is why my friend that I knew from all my TV days was there to sing the national anthem. And then all of a sudden the pieces started, fitting together. Yeah, and that's when I thought, oh my gosh,
you were already nervous, and that
what the heck? Yeah. I will go ahead and fast forward. So those are kind of the most funny parts of it. But I will say that it went, considering the circumstances, as in I did not know what I was doing, circumstance, it went incredibly well. I will also say I had a big cheering section. I had some, like my boxing coach was there, and also one of my best friends who I absolutely adore. Her name is Linda. She was there. She was at the bar because she was like, "I can't handle this." She's like, throwing back gin and tonics, She's like, and the cheering got louder and louder. I think it's more vodka tonics were consumed, or gin and tonics. But and it was, and they also, quite a few of them said, "So if we know that you're not going to win, can we go ahead and bet, this is a real fight?" I was like, "You do not need to be doing that to me." But so it actually went very smoothly. We did exactly as it was supposed to go, and just to give you a brief explanation, there was about 15 seconds of kind of us sussing each other out, and then I would throw a punch, she would kind of throw a kick, and we would kind of be doing this dance, and then I attacked her, and then started punching her, and then she would kick me, kick. And according to all my friends, it's funny because they said in about 45-second mark or so, they said that my face just changed because I was like, "Oh no, I'm tired of you doing this," right? But I, continued with the program. But so then, and then after, so we're kind of fighting against each other. I get her on the ground, and I'm kind of wrestling around with her. And then I get ready to punch her, and then she gets my arm, and then she has me pulled back. And then I have to tap out, and then that's how things end, basically. Yeah.
Hey, no broken nose.
No broken nose. Yeah. But I will say, and it's so funny, to this day we have this joke because, it was a championship match, right? So I even went on radio and talked about this. And I know I wasn't supposed to, but I did. And I was like, yeah, #2 in the world. What? And so actually with me and friends that were there to cheer me on. We went to Hard Rock Cafe afterwards. We had a #2 in the world party. It was a lot of fun, you know. But yeah, #2 in the world. But another kind of sideline to that, I didn't find out until about 2 weeks later from a guy that I used to play volleyball with a lot. He actually knew my opponent. And yeah, he told me, you know, I don't know if you know this, Lisle, but her father is a very well-respected Yakuza boss. This is mafia. I know! And I told him, I said, Dan, I am so glad I did not know that. Which I know I wouldn't have had anything to do with that, you know. But I do think that you can probably look online somewhere, I'm sure, and find it, because it kind of goes to one of these things. I'm sorry, did you get a signature? Did you make a signature?
No.
Okay, good. Okay. But so, yeah. So that is my side story.